Let's start with Ale. Ale, what did you bring?
Hi, I brought my Up with People host family journal. Yes,
Oh, all right, we're gonna dig
that's
into
what I
that.
brought. Yeah.
Good. It was a thick one too. And then Fred, what did you bring?
Brought a piece of signed music, and it's the Up with People music.
Theme song.
And I have about 20 pieces of music hanging around the house.
Oh my goodness. Well, we're going to talk about how you've branded your space. Clearly, I don't have my Up with People gear, but you can already start to hear everyone tuning in. This is another episode of Not Quite Strangers. My name is Valerie Hope. I'm your host. And every week or every opportunity we can, to bring two people together. And this is an opportunity to inspire curiosity, build connection, and also disrupt the status quo. There's nothing that says that we can't have meaningful conversations with strangers. And today is no different. I have here two amazing people that I've had the fortune of meeting. In one case, Ale, you and I met, oh my goodness, has it been a year? I think it's been a year.
It's getting close to a year, actually.
And the way I ended up meeting you is when you were a part of the panel that Up with People Alumni Association had a panel, and it was all around diversity and inclusion and the experience of traveling and Up with People. And there are several things that you said in that panel that I was like, oh my gosh, I think the same thing. I need to talk to this lady. So I reached out to you on LinkedIn. I'm like, can we talk? Out of the blue. And you were so generous and so sweet and said yes. And I actually invited you to be in the first episode of this podcast, but for timing reasons, the other person couldn't make it. And I knew the universe was saying, you got to reserve her because there's somebody that she needs to meet. And that is Mr. Fred Heismeyer. Now, Fred and I go back to 1997.
Sounds right.
Oh, so Fred was one of my host fathers.
Oh, really?
Back in the day, yes. He and his wife Joyce. I stayed with you for a month in Arkansas.
Wow.
Was it Little Rock? No,
it was Springdale.
Springdale, Arkansas. Yes, for a whole month. And here's my mom's going to get a kick out of this, Fred, but something that you may not know. But I'll tell you now, when I didn't steal anything. That's not what you said that. But
I've been missing that item.
That's the thing. No, but when I stayed in your home, it was around Thanksgiving time. And I was there for a month, and you hosted some of the other members of the Up with People cast and some staff in your home for Thanksgiving. You wanted to do like some sort of potluck. And you asked me to prepare a dish from my culture that I could share with the group. And that was a time in my life where cooking was not that big. I didn't have a repertoire. I had no clue. So I called my mom and I'm like, I need to learn how to make rice. Because I had no idea. Like a rice and peas dish that we do. And she's like, oh my goodness, Valerie, I don't know how to tell you. You know what? Your aunt is perfect. She'll know exactly what measurements and all that stuff. But I called her and she was like, measurements? No, you just put a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So I don't know if anybody got food poisoning, but my mom still talks about that. Like, Valerie called me from Arkansas because she didn't know how to make rice. Like 20 some odd years later. Anyhow.
But Mom, it's a special rice.
It is a special. Thank you. It's not just white rice. It was like
That's
rice
right.
with like peas, and it was anyhow. And so I'm so grateful for the two of you. And I know that people are listening may not be familiar with Up with People. So I'd love for one of you, first of all, to share what is Up with People and how did you get involved? Let's start with that, and then we'll go into the objects.
Allie, go ahead.
Shall I? Well, Up with People is an international organization that aims to bring people together from all walks of life, all nations, and to really just increase the understanding, to just not make things dramatic, that we're not so different. basically a lot like your program here, that we're not
I couldn't call
so
it Up
much-
with People. I was already taken.
Yeah, we're not so much of of strangers. We are really much alike, but maybe we don't understand each other
Mhm.
because we hear things from the news, we hear things when we go to school, and we start creating pictures about different nations, different people, and so on, and that just becomes some sort of a concept. But when you meet each other, you actually just say, oh my goodness, we're just the same. We think the same things. We have the same problems. We have the same challenges. We go through the same things in life.
Mhm.
But so that is really what Act with People was all about. And to do that through music, I believe, is a very powerful tool to bring people together. So we performed 2 hours of show, dance and song and music from all sorts of different cultures that we represented. So I think we were about 102 people altogether. I traveled 1987. And yeah, we traveled mostly within the States, and then we came to Europe, and yeah, just had this show on 2 hours that we shared. And also when we came to different places, we were involved in the community as such, to also come closer into the environment, to share more to the people as well that we met. So, and also stayed with host families, like you stayed with Fred. I
Mhm.
stayed with, I think I had over 100 host families. Amazing experience. So very gracious time. And it's been very important for me in my life. And we were about around 20 years old. So it's a springboard for your adulthood life. So it's really a beautiful thing to do.
Huge. Do you work for
Yeah.
Up with People now? That was so thorough. It's like,
No.
Fred, what would you like to add?
Allie did a great job. I'll just tell you my story of getting into the Up with People world. Back when I was 11 years old, 1967, I was involved with Boy Scouts, and we were at a camp closing. It's a closing campfire, closing the season out. And the camp staff did 4 songs on the docks. And it was 4 Up with People songs, as a matter of fact. It was, for our audience that might know Up with People, it was the ride of Paul Revere, Freedom Isn't Free, Which Way America, and Up with People. I had no idea where these songs came from. I'm an 11-year-old kid, but I can remember singing Up with People, or what I remembered of it, going home with my mom and dad the day after. As it turned out, my scoutmaster was also the director of camp, who then created a local sing out group called Sing Out Tomorrow. And I became enamored with what Up with People was, at least from that little kind of microcosm of what Up with People was. 1969 rolls around. I'm in Idaho at this National Scout Jamboree, and Up with People performed before 30,000, 35,000 scouts. I'm 13, going on 14. Hey, my scoutmaster for the Jamboree was also the director of Sing Out Tomorrow. George, how do you join? That was the springboard. I joined the Sing Out cast, and then just kept going from there. And Up with People has been a very integral and interwoven part of my life over the years. So, yeah.
So what year did you actually join the Sing Out?
I joined Sing Out in 1969, because you had to be 14.
Okay.
And I traveled with cast 75A.
75.
Bicentennial year.
Oh,
Amazing.
Claim to fame.
Yeah.
75A.
Acclaim, but no fame for me.
For the cast.
Yeah.
And where were you? You said you were in Idaho when you went to the Jamboree, but where are you from originally, Fred?
New Jersey.
From Jersey.
Right.
Got
Right
it.
outside New York City.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. And Ale, you didn't add how did you get involved? Like, how did you find out about it?
I was in Uppsala. Uppsala is north of Stockholm here in Sweden. So I grew up in Sweden, and they came there and had a performance. And I remember thinking that, yeah, I just knew it. I just knew when I saw that I'm going to be a part of it. I have this kind of intuition. I'm just a little bit weird like that. Some things I just know.
Weird.
Yeah.
And I knew when I saw it, I knew I was going to be a part of it. I just knew it. And then they said, yeah, so come behind the scene and we're going to speak to you. And I said, yeah, I'm coming. Yeah. And everything was just, just like a water, it just flew and I was there.
Wow.
And I joined 87.
For cast?
E87. Yeah.
E87. Well,
Yeah.
mine is probably a combination of your two stories, because my mom used to have a record that looks very similar to what you have on the wall behind you, Fred. She used to have this record, Up With People record, because apparently she was up with people in Panama when, I guess maybe before we were born. And we had a record at home. And so I had heard the song Up With People growing up around the house, but I had no idea what it was. I didn't know it was an organization. I had no clue. So fast forward, I'm in high school. It was my birthday. I think it was my junior year of high school. On the day of my birthday, or maybe leading up to the week of my birthday, my mom said, guess what? Up With People is still around and they're coming to Ozark, Alabama. We should host somebody. And I was like, nah. I had a lot of attitude for a 16-year-old. It's like, nah, I don't want to do anything. She's like, but we're gonna host. It's gonna be so fun. So we hosted a young lady from Canada and another one from Mexico. So we had like a little NAFTA thing going on. And it was interesting, but I didn't really connect with them. They were a little bit older than me, in their 20s or whatever, but they were nice enough. And they only spent a few days. At the show, it was the day of my birthday. The show was the day of my birthday. I wanted to go roller skating or something else. And my mom was like, no, we're going to support our hosts, our guests, and go to the show. So that put me in the worst state to ever, I don't even want to be associated with this organization. It's my birthday and I'm doing a show. And I bopped my head a little bit, but just enough so that my mom would notice I was enjoying the show. Yeah. And then they did the whole come to the front if you want information. I'm like, nah, not interested. Fast forward, go to college. I'm my last year of college and I'm a senior. And I was looking for work and, I'd sent out 30 resumes all over the place and I hadn't gotten any responses. And one of the days I went to check my mailbox in the student center, I run into my former high school drum major, Keith Davis. And I just wrote about this on Facebook the other day. So this is so funny. But so Keith, he did Traveling Up With People. He and several other people from my high school ended up going and being a part of the cast. But what was so funny is he and I weren't friends. We just knew each other from band. And I was like, Keith, I didn't know you were going to school here. He's like, oh, I just got here. And traveled up with people for a year. And I did this and I did that. And I just went, my girlfriend's in Netherlands and all this stuff. And I was just like, he was like a different man. Fun. He was so mature and so worldly. I'm like, this is not the same kid I remember from high school. And I told him, this is what I'm doing and I'm studying XYZ and I'm graduating in a few months. And he's like, hey, call my friend Mary McCullough in the admissions office for Up With People. I think they could use somebody like you. And I was like, all right. So I called. A few days later, I get a phone call. I got an interview. Next thing I know, you're going to Colorado for staging. And then you're going to Florida for training. And then we're sending to Venezuela for our first tour there in 20 years. And I worked for Up With People and lived out of a suitcase for 5 years. From that moment, 5 years, staffed the whole time and lived with about 400 plus host families, traveled to 15 countries and absolutely life-changing. And then I get to meet phenomenal people like the two of you, instant bond.
Instant bond.
So I want to hear these objects that you brought. What is the significance of the object? Ale, let's start with you and your your big
Well,
family Bible there.
oh, this one, it's just, I haven't read it for so long. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity for me to look through it before I met you guys today. And I did, and I started crying, actually.
Oh,
It is so powerful. It's such a beautiful thing in here. And the things that people write and the memories. I mean, it's another time, the furniture, the clothes and everything. You can laugh and think, oh my God, this is another life. but the innocence, the genuine meetings with people, and just the openness, like curiosity. Everybody was just open to life, as we're not as much when we get older. That came through so strongly, and it hit me like, wow, that was such a beautiful time. And I just take this and put it on the shelf, while this is really filled with so much life and so much just beautiful goody things that we never should forget. And I thank you for that, because I'm going to connect with some people from this book now, because we all just go into our other lives, and you just go into the circle and so on, and you forget. We just forget, but it's there.
Yeah.
And we talked about choice. It is a choice to reach out and to initiate different things. So that's why this means a lot. And also the first page is my godparents. So I stayed with my godparents in San Diego. I am Ethiopian. I was born in Ethiopia. So my godparents, he was a Navy officer that was assigned to Ethiopia way back then at the 60s. And so she became my godmother there. And she has been exactly like a mother to me. And I stayed with them, and she has followed me, during the Up With People time and so on. And they are on the first page here. And it just opened up many memories. We tend to just close our chapters and move on, but it's also good to remember the good things. So that's why I really cherish this, and I'm happy I got it out.
Yay! I should have done that and see what did Fred write about me and my husband. I'm totally face, but I'm gonna check. I'm gonna send you a picture, Fred.
I'm going to be cut from this podcast, I think.
That's beautiful. Fred, any reflections on what Alice shared so far before we talk about your object?
Well, it's interesting because your memories in that book about host families is something that I cherish as well. When I was being interviewed for the cast, and the person who gave my second interview was Dale Penny.
Oh.
And
who became the president of Up With People at one point. Yeah. Is he still president?
Yeah, he was president. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he was president and CEO at two different times in its history. But what's interesting is that I remember being asked, Up With People has the music, the show, has the host families, it has the travel, and they gave me like 3 or 4 different things that make up the roundedness, the fullness of Up With People. And I remember saying, I think it's going to be the host families, because it is about making those connections. I don't know if I said it quite that way, probably not, but it is about those connections. And I just love that about your treasure that you have there. I wish I had done more of the writing, and they do tell us, make sure you write stuff down.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to my parents. I don't listen to, no.
You're bucking authority. So you didn't keep a host family book, Fred?
Well, I kept notes. I didn't have a book, but we had, the 3x5 allocation cards and things like that. And I have some notes in there, and we kept a cast journal.
That's interesting, because I know they told us in our year, you should have some sort of book that you give your families to write a message for you. So that we predate the you predate the host, the cast book, the family.
Well, I think when I traveled, we had these big blocks of stone and chisels and hammers, and they thought it'd be too much for the bus.
It was too heavy. No,
It was too heavy.
Tell us a little bit about your object. Then you said you have sheet music from all over your home.
Yeah, I do. And the one I picked up off the wall was Up With People. And the reason I picked this, and I'm going to put it back down. We can look at it later if you want. But the reason I picked that is because obviously it's the key song. It's the song that has spanned the 55 years that Up With People has been around. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, I've got signatures on there from not only Paul and Ralph Caldwell, but also from Dale Penny, Mr. and Mrs. Belk, Jim McLennan, and I hope, and Lynn Morris. And I hope to get a few more because it's that memory of Up With People and those people that have had an impact on my life. And so that's why I picked that. But there are a lot of memories. Music for me really triggers a memory. And I think it does for all of us, in one way or another. But I can sit there and listen to a song from the early 1970s called Take Me There. Mm-hmm. And I can remember my Sing Out cast doing an outdoor show, and the phrase "Take Me There" is repeated. And every time it would repeat, rain would get harder and harder. And none of us on stage moved until our director said, "Okay, you can leave stage." But it was just, one of those moments that I remember. And I can remember so many times singing Where the Roads Come Together, singing Roads. Right. And just that, it's just a magical piece of music.
Emotional.
Amazing.
I'm gonna do something really quick because I think, Ale, we're having some challenges.
Yeah, well, the video just disappeared for me here.
Disappeared? Is your camera not working?
It's so good.
Ethiopian. What is it? What is an Ethiopian spicy tea that you're drinking? What's
it's like cinnamon, cardamom, and what is it called? The other one? We say neylik. Is that no?
What does it look like?
Brown.
Ginger? Brown?
No. Yeah, you can have ginger as well, but neylik. I actually looked it up.
You'll have to just send me. You'll send me the recipe. So I love stuff like that. I drink spicy.
One moment, I can tell you.
It's so thorough.
It's called carnation. Carnation.
Carnation.
Yeah.
Never heard of that. And that is.
Do you know what?
Like the flour?
No, it's a hard thing. I can send you it's really nice. And then you just cook it just with water. That's it. It's just spice and water.
Spice and water. I love that.
Interesting.
Really nice.
So I'm curious for you guys. Obviously, we've all talked about having the experience of living with families and the shows and that sort of thing. And Fred, you mentioned this, the moment of the music, the way the music really does have quite a deep and profound memory. But I'm curious about like the one story that you love to tell people about your experience in Up With People. What is that story, Ale? And then Fred, I want to hear the same. Your go-to.
My God. What I love to tell. I think for me at that time was just a meeting with all these different people. I remember so well coming into Arizona. Just being in Arizona in itself was just a huge thing for me, just being in the States. And then looking at all the people, all the nations, I remember thinking that I'm going to have to be friends with the Japanese, with the French, with that. I was like making plans, like putting everyone, all the nations. I was so excited and I couldn't have time enough to get to everybody. And then I remember that we could have like pair up on the buses.
Bus dates.
You have that too? Like you could speak more in depth with people. And I have booked everyone I could. Like I was doing the journals.
You had like people, bus date Tinder.
Bus date.
And that was so exciting. exciting to me to just wake up in the morning and knowing that today I have a bus date with a Japanese girl, and I had never met anybody from Japan. So I was just so excited just waking up and knowing that. And that excitement is really something that is typical for Up With People for me. Just waking up and just knowing that something new is going to happen. I miss that. Yeah.
Well, you're on a path now, you said, right? This is your first time or second time being on a podcast, so you have an opportunity to start doing new things again.
Yeah, maybe you're inspiring me to some things.
Oh, cool. What about for you, Fred? Favorite story?
I think that some of the stories just won't make sense unless they become a long story. So I'm trying to think of one that's a little bit shorter. But I think for me, one of the go-tos is that the year I traveled was strictly in the United States. And here we are, we're an international cast celebrating the 200th anniversary of the United States, which is a little bit of a disconnect, I'm sure, for our international students. But it was so cool to be able to have a little bit of a part of this national celebration. The year I traveled, we had 3 casts of about 150 each, and each cast broke into 3 groups. So at any one day, we could have 9 shows going on. Oof. And, I always joke, we hit every small little community in the United States with these small little groups. Mm-hmm. But flip that around, and we were the first cast to do the Super Bowl, the first of 4 Super Bowls. We were a cast that did some major events all around the United States, including performing in Indianapolis for a crowd of, I don't know, there's 10, 15,000 people in the streets of Indianapolis on July 4th of 1976. So it was that kind of experience. Yeah. But it was travel show almost the whole year. Mm-hmm. Had very little time, quote, time off or time away from the show and from the cast and so forth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and it was amazing how you just kind of get into a family and then out and then into the next and then out. Yeah. It was amazing when you think about it, that not many people get to experience that, to come into people's home in that way.
It's not common. I mean, we're literally meeting strangers regularly. I remember I was in, oh my goodness, Freiburg, Germany, and staying with a host family. And we were only there for like 3 days or something like that, 3-4 days. And although I was a staff member, I stayed with host family as much as I could. So I loved that experience. And I love Latin dancing. I'm originally from Panama, so I love salsa dancing, that sort of thing. And my host mom found out that was something I was interested in. She's like, I think we have a salsa club here. You want to go? So my roommate from Mexico, Diana Karina, and I were like, yes, let's go. That'd be so fun. So we're this little town in Germany. We go to this salsa club. They're playing all this, I think, the DJ or something. I think it was live music. Anyway, so we're hanging out, the 3 of us, host mom, my Up With People friend, and me, sitting around and talking. And all of a sudden, this woman comes across the room and walks up to me, and she's like, Valerie Hope? Oh my God. I don't know anybody in Germany. Like, who is this? And I can't remember her name right now, but her name escapes me. She's like, it's me from Sweden, from Up With People. I'm like, what? So she used to travel and Up With People like a couple of years prior, and I worked with her cast for a bit. And she's from Sweden, but was studying in Freiburg, and saw me in this disco and came over to say hi. And then she introduced me to a friend of hers who is named Michael, who from Dallas, Texas. That was super cute. One of the reasons I moved to Dallas, whatever, but nothing happened. He just, I was just like, Dallas might be a good place to live. But it was like one of those surreal moments. And you joke around because in the song it says you meet them wherever you go. Up with people. You meet them wherever you go. And it's so true. I've had some of the most random encounters. Like, you're Up With People too? What? Anyhow, so that's one of the many examples.
Amazing.
Well, you know, as we
amazing.
talk about host families, one of the most interesting things was being hosted by a host family I never met. They gave the key to a neighbor. The neighbor picked us up, got us to the house, handed us the key, and said, "Here you go."
Interesting.
And I'm thinking to myself, would I do that? No. There were like, I don't know, 2 or 3 of us.
And you just stayed in this house like a random
Yeah.
family?
Yeah, because they got
And there were
called.
nobody there.
No. And they, you know, they'd written us a note saying there's food in the refrigerator and all that kind of stuff that we need to know. And our neighbor will pick you up and take you to the show. I mean, you know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was really interesting.
Oh,
How
Yeah, that's
trusting.
interesting.
Yeah.
all right. So,
Yeah,
so I asked you the
wow.
favorite story. What's your favorite Up With People question to ask? Because I'm curious what questions you ask other cast members or people that you know have traveled. Your favorite question.
I wanted to know whoever I met in the cast for who they were, you know, where do they come from, just how do they think, how do they reason, how do they see the world. I think that was the most important thing. And when you get to meet people on that level, you really start understanding that there are kind of like cultural differences, and but also like personal profiles.
Yeah.
That's what I felt was very interesting. Who are you? Like really you
You would ask that
in
question?
this.
Like, who
Yes,
are you?
yes, yes, I would. I always ask very strange questions.
Who are you? Very
Yeah,
profound.
my favorite question to ask, actually, till this day, is if I don't know a person, I always ask them, if you please don't tell me, you don't tell me your name, don't tell me where you come from, what you work with, where you live, nothing of that nature. If you just take all that away, how would you describe yourself?
Mm.
Okay, Fred, I think that's a legit question. How would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as being caring and fun-loving. I love to have a good time. As a trainer, one of the things I always bring to the sessions is, are we going to have fun today?
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
you know, whether we're doing a sit-down supervisory training for top managers, or whether we're doing a ropes course, or whether we're doing something with college students, it's all about, we're going to have fun and we're going to learn. So
That's
Ooh.
amazing.
And you're
You didn't
consistent.
even get stressed by the question. Many people get really stressed out by that question.
That's good. And Fred, I could have said the same thing, Fred,
Yeah.
from when I met you back in 97, like caring and fun loving. I mean, you're the only trainer that you use hula hoops, and
yeah.
you had like a bag of tricks, and
Yeah.
you were always so generous with us. And to this day,
And
I
they're
think-
all in my garage.
I bet. But you know what? Truth be told, you're probably the only host family. You and Joyce are the only two in my host family experiences that I've remained in continuous contact with over the past 20 plus years.
Amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
yeah, no, thank you. It was huge for me. And Ale, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, I would answer it in the same way as Fred did.
You can't
because-
use his words though.
No, not words, but
Caring and fun loving are
ultimately-
taken.
Yeah, because it's ultimately it's our nature, without having to put any external labels on it. It's who are you? And I am a lot of I'm very childish, like this childish nature of mine doesn't seem to. I really love to just joke around, like not, it's just not serious. It shouldn't be serious. It's really light. Like we are energetic beings anyway, all of us. So it's very light popcorny feeling. I love that, you know.
That's a
When
great
people just
analogy.
go, popcorny energy feeling that just nothing is very heavy. You can just joke and I think that's it. Just fun and also supportive. I think yeah, and I think I come with a very supportive energy.
Mhm.
That's the nature I come with. I really feel responsibility many times in making a comfortable environment. It's really important for me when I get somewhere that everyone is comfortable, have the popcorn feeling, as fast as possible, just can let go of anything that is externally labeled and just relaxed. And if people just lay on the sofa with their feet, I feel like great.
Love it.
Yeah,
Made him comfortable.
yeah, just
So,
relax.
Allie,
Yeah.
Allie, should we let Valerie off the hook? Doesn't
No,
she have to answer that question?
for sure.
Hey, this is
I was
my
coming to
show.
that.
Your
I'll-
guests are turning on you.
I'll be deep and brief. I would say curious. That's a huge one for me. Obviously, I love asking questions, and this is how I got so close and connected with people and up with people in the host families. I mean, give me 3 hours with somebody.
Sure.
Good thing I'm not FBI or CIA. So curious for sure. And I think similar to the two of you, playful. I'd say
Yeah.
there's a bit of play. I found that being curious could also turn people off if it doesn't come from a place of engaging, like the popcorny thing that you shared, Ale, because I think people sometimes can feel a little confronted when you're getting too personal so quickly. But I think being playful and curious really kind of worked to my advantage. And what else? I think connected, like I feel really connected to people. And it doesn't have to be over a particular period of time or over a particular thing. I think once I connect with somebody like soul to soul, even if it's just that one time, I feel like that has made an impression on my soul in some way, shape, or form. Like I feel like I have little soul prints of people that I connect with. I've never said that before, but it does feel that way a bit.
That's really nice. Yeah, it is.
Soul prints.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious about questions that you guys would ask each other. So I know I have tons, but I'd like to, because I know this is a very dynamic pairing here.
But, you know, these connections, like you mentioned, running into somebody from Sweden when you were in Germany and so forth. So, Ellie, do you know Anna Karlberg by any chance? Have you met her?
No. Anna,
She
what was the
is
last?
Karlberg.
No.
No, Anna is a castmate of mine.
Okay.
She stayed in Up With People a couple of years. I'm not exactly sure as staff, but she's in Stockholm. And I didn't know if through maybe a Stockholm or a Sweden alumni get together. But
I'm sure she is a part of it. I have not been very active.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And I do love Stockholm.
Yes.
Joyce and I were there and didn't have nearly as much time as we would like. Would like to get to other parts of the country, but we really enjoyed Stockholm. So
yeah, it's
nice,
beautiful.
nice country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Sweden is great. We did 2 tours of Sweden. One of the different casts that I've traveled in, went there twice. And we were in the Nordics for 3 months each time. In January, middle of winter. But it was beautiful. Oh my gosh. I remember going to Piteå, which is like, super
way up north.
Örebro, which I think that's, it was
more in the middle.
Phenomenal experience, seeing the reindeer. But I mean, you name it, I think we got to do in the snow. I rode a spark.
Really?
I have pictures of it. It's like a little, like almost like a sled thing that people use up north to even just go to the grocery store or whatever. But so many cultural experiences. So I'm curious about, for the two of you, thinking back to an experience that you had either with a host family or with another cast member or some place that you traveled to where you experienced some culture shock of some version of what's going on here. Anything like that?
Well,
good or bad? Good or bad, by the way.
I never saw it as a shock, though.
Uh-huh.
I just saw it always. I was so curious anyway. to just, what am I going to meet? So one experience that I always took with me was a woman that had been homeless all her life. And she just had got her first home. It was a small home, but she invited us. She wanted to host us because she was so
Wow.
happy for her first. And that was such a beautiful, beautiful meeting with that lady. And she told us, and we were sitting there crying, listening about her story, but she was very grateful and happy and was just so happy to share. And those kind of things, of course, there are differences always, but what a opportunity to meet a person like that and to come so close, and for the generosity to invite us into her home.
Right.
That I will never forget that meeting. It was beautiful. It's
Where
really,
was that?
really beautiful. I don't remember. It was somewhere in the States. I don't
US.
remember. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that I always take that with me. And then of course also we stayed with the host families that had like owned half of the city, that you couldn't imagine, like, oh my goodness, how can you have so much money? and that was also a shock on the other side. But it was what it was. It was just interesting to be a part of different households. I remember thinking, you can live your life in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And it was a very unique way of really exposing yourself to seeing different, and also speaking. I spoke very much with my host families on how it was to live, and the challenges and the children and things like that. So yeah.
Fred.
I think for me, because our cast never went outside the US, the type of cultural differences that you hope for traveling to a different country, different part of the world, really didn't happen. But there are two stories that come to mind. One happened with my Sing Out cast, and we were doing a small show, acoustic style show for a group of parents and their kids, and all of their kids had developmental needs. And, it was just a come in, do 20, 30 minutes, interact a little bit and leave. So, no big setup, nothing like that. Well, we're on stage, and by the way, I guess I need to preface this by saying this is like within the first couple of months I'm part of Sing Out. So I'm really nervous about performing, but so there's this kiddo in the front row who's just making a lot of grunting noises, sounds, things like that, reacting to the music, but you could tell he didn't have verbal skills. And his mom's kind of sitting there and holding him, making sure he doesn't move too much or whatever. At the end of the show, we're out talking, and his mom says, "Can you bring the cast together?" He brought the cast together. And with tears in her eyes, she said, "My son was never verbal, was never interactive until tonight."
Really?
And it was like, that's to me was, to this day, and that's been 50 years ago or more, I still get chills thinking about this kiddo. And what an impact, what we thought was just a quick do them, get them up, get them done with kind of show. And it had that kind of impact. The other one was with Up With People. And that was going into the Mormon country of the United States, which we didn't know much about. I didn't know much about. We had a drummer who happened to be part of the church, and so he gave us some information about it. But realizing that even as different as the religions are and so forth, we're all the same, And that goes back to that culture that cultural experience that you were talking about, Ali. We are all the same. And we don't need to be fearful. We don't need to be standoffish. We need to embrace. And I thought that was a really great experience.
Amazing.
That's the more I listen to you, and of course I have my own experiences in my head, but I'm just like, what a unique privilege, right? To have seen so many walks of life. Ali, I love what you said, live life, and people live life in so many different ways. And we were privy to a glimpse anyways, right? When you're only for a day or 3 or so, you don't necessarily get the full experience, but you get a moment in time with something or someone or in a culture that you would have never thought of. I know I was the only and first Black person in many people's homes. Most of my host families were not Black. I could count on one hand how many I had in the 5 years that I traveled for whatever reason. And not that there were other families who hosted who were Black around the world, but for some reason it wasn't me. But it was interesting how I did feel sometimes a bit of the responsibility is not the right word, but I did feel that I had the privilege to give them an experience and allow them to ask questions and maybe they were they're not able to ask other people or don't feel the confidence to. So I found myself going pretty deep with people, especially the young ones, the young children.
Very important.
Huge.
And that's where the fear comes from. The fear comes from not knowing that we are all the same.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to empower individual people on an individual level. Once each and every individual knows who they are, then that won't be an issue anymore.
But we have to go deep enough. I think to your point, there has to be, like you said, like the question that you asked, that without telling me about where you're from or what you do or whatever, like if we have the opportunity to go deep enough, we get to that. Otherwise, I think the outer shell is very distracting for people. Where you live,
don't have time.
How you dress, your ethnicity or your accent or any of those elements that distinguish
and
people.
your attention is limited. So you have so much to take care of. All these labels have to be considered every day, 24/7. So unless you have a tool and an awareness about the other dimension of yourself, how are you supposed to find that? And I think that is that is a key. I'm very passionate about individual empowerment. Like we're talking so much about sustainability, sustainable this, sustainable that, but whatever is sustainable out there is reflecting sustainable individuals to begin with. 100%. So if we can focus on making the individual sustainable, we will reflect the outer world in a sustainable world. But so to come back to what you said, Fred, about the fear comes out of not knowing that there is really nothing to be fearful about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And up with people in the sense you also said, Valerie, gave us opportunity to show fearful people, if there were some, to show other dimensions that really there is nothing to be fearful about. And it's not easy for people that are scared of certain things if they never get to see another side. How are they supposed to find another way? So it's really sad from that perspective as well. So it's hard to judge anybody. Everybody's just doing the best that they can from the situation we are. 100%. But I really like the thing, if everyone at least can talk to themselves and say, let me take away all my labels. Sooner or later, they will come to this.
That's all there's left, really. That's what's left. I remember being in Estonia, and luckily, I stayed with a host family there too, but the son had traveled enough with people a year or two before, and I knew him, so he hosted me, he and his parents. And so we walked around. I mean, 6 foot, Sven, his name is Sven, 6 foot tall, blonde, very fair skinned, right? As my niece likes to call, pink skin. I'm brown. Ale, you're tan, and Fred, you're pink. Hey, so we're walking around in Tallinn, Estonia, the capital, and we had to ride in public transportation. And oh my goodness, people were staring straight up at me, just like, we've never seen a person of my color before. And it was actually quite, it wasn't scary. First of all, I'm glad I was with Sven, because then he could, if anyone said anything in Estonian that I didn't understand, he could support there, but no one said anything, but I found it flattering. Actually, that evening, the cast got together at a local pub. And when I was there, like several random people wanted to come and take a photo with me. So I have this photo with these two Russian guys. There's this. Also, I learned
like a unique happening.
It was like this whole thing, and I felt like Janet Jackson for a moment.
Yeah, like a celebrity.
This is positive attention, but it was, again, I think we both mentioned that this idea of checking our assumptions about not only our assumptions about other people, but then allowing whatever assumptions that people have when they are ready to challenge them, to give them enough space to do it. And I think that's what Up With People taught me, is I knew that I would have experiences where people were like, I don't know how to, but just by saying, yes, you can come and stay in my house, it was like, okay, now I need to make myself open enough and accepting enough with whatever shows up to give them an experience of themselves that they may not have otherwise.
Exactly.
And I learned so much from how to allow and how to be very gracious. I had some crazy people. So I'm going to ask you guys, any crazy host families or crazy travel stories that you're allowed to say in public in mixed company? So there's a little bit of a cheeky side Up With People. So
you go, Fred.
Oh, thanks.
Well, that was quick.
I was pretty fortunate with host families. I can't think of anybody that I would call just kind of really off one way or the other. My host family in Tucson for staging was a woman about 60 years old or something like that. I think she was retired. And she had told Up With People, I can only take a student or two students for 2 weeks out of the 5-week staging because I'm going to be gone. Up With People said, sure. And so at the end of the 2 weeks, she said, oh, you guys just stay here. And
this happens a lot.
It was kind of like the other
like you guys.
She left us money, she left us food, and she said, here you go, it's your house. And that's just really cool. I do remember a bus breaking down, and many of us have that story, you just have to sit on the side of the road or whatever. And I guess there's just a lot of those kind of stories that unless you live through them, it's really hard to relate how funny or how interesting they are.
No, I agree. I don't think I have anything like, nothing that I feel was terrible and I wasn't judgmental either. Really, I took everyone as they were. I truly, truly did. I never had any expectation. I was, okay, where am I coming now? Okay, this is how they do it here. This is how they live here. And so I just learned. It felt like, opening a window.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like reading a book or watching it. You don't judge it. You just accept. Okay, this is how they're doing it here. How interesting. And then I tried to ask as many questions as I could. I remember it really did come close to my host families, during dinner and so on. I always stayed up and talked. Same. So no, I have really gracious memories and very positive memories. I can't even remember And it's up to us, right? If we judge it, if we want to judge, we will find strange things because we will start judging from our expectations and our experiences, how we think it should be. Well, there's nothing that should be, but we have our own concepts. And from that, you can start finding all sorts of strange stories if you want.
Yeah. There's, and I think because, and not to diminish this, but I think not only has it been a long time, but spending 1 year in that very intensive experience, and now with the perspective of maturity, there's certain things that fall into place and now have maybe a grander meaning or deeper meaning. But there are some crazy people. I was in the staff, so we are privy to some crazy stuff. College age students, a year together. It was like, oh my gosh. I remember a newspaper article. I was promoting host families and the show and everything I think I was in Canada someplace. And they completely took some of the words. Like I had that experience with the media where you say something and it's written, it's not what you said. So they asked about, do you guys know rule number 9? Remember rule number 9? Is that, no, I don't know if you had that. So rule number 9 was that there was no fraternization with between cast members, no sexual or they discourage romantic, especially the sexual piece. So that was rule number 9, that there should be no hanky panky at all throughout the year. We didn't want. This was prior to the whole focusing on harassment. We didn't really talk about that, but that I'm sure was born out of it. But I remember this article was written. I was asked questions about the group and how we met and how we traveled, all that good stuff. And then the reporter was like, I heard that you have a rule about, what is this rule number 9? I think that's what I was just like, what am I supposed to say? For the good of the students and the experience, I put my best PR spin on it or whatever. And then the article said something about, cast members are prohibited from knocking boots. And I'm like, I never said knocking boots. Who says that in an article? Silly. But there's definitely, I think, some moments that had me really like challenged. I think. So my last question about Up With People, and then I want to start to look at the experience of the two of you meeting. So knowing what you know about yourselves from that lens, from that experience, how does it inform who you are in the world today? We have a lot of things going on in this world, especially in the last couple of years, around how workplaces, communities, organizations could do more, be more, could extend themselves more and being more inclusive, helping people feel more belonging and be more diverse. So I'm curious about the experiences that you had. How do they inform how you move in the world today as it relates to what's been happening the last couple of years?
Can I go? Sure. For me, that was such an important experience to self-awareness and to being comfortable with who I am, understanding, having a wider perspective, and just being solid in who I am and what I believe in and what I could, based on that, do and reach out to people, and being comfortable more in doing what is right from that perspective, if it makes sense.
Can you give an example, Ale? Give us an example of how that shows up.
Not being afraid. I think that is a central part of everything. Not being afraid of people you meet, not being afraid of addressing issues, and having the tools to address them in a good way, in a functional way. Understanding people, that there's nuances. Do you say nuance in English? Like you have
nuance.
Yeah. You learn to be able to feel yourself in to different people and how people perceive things, that you become more diplomatic, I would say, more diplomatic, and be able to walk with ease and neutrally and not take things so personally. And that all comes through understanding.
To being
Understanding of
diplomatic.
yourself, understanding of others, and understanding that things are the way they are, not because people are bad, but because people have had certain conditions.
I'm going to
And
peel
that,
one more layer back. Give us an
yeah,
example of something you've experienced, a story. Tell us a story of where you've had to be that diplomatic, where you've had to really get centered and be be more conscious of yourself and your reaction.
yeah. There was a situation I can take about German people, for instance. There was a pretty harsh belief about German people, and I had really close friends that were German, and I felt that they were carrying a burden from their history that they really couldn't take the responsibility for. And the other group that was against this group, so to speak, I was able to really make them understand. And also the German group to not take that responsibility, because it's a heavy burden on that side as well.
Yeah.
And having that conversation on both sides was really, I think, changing, not fully, but a small step forward. We all can do that. Nothing is changed overnight, but we can help, always, like you say, peel off something. And that was a situation I really felt made a difference, just because we were as well, we had the friendship on both sides.
Yeah. So you were kind of the peacemaker, at least to help them hear each other, it sounds like.
Yeah.
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 Love that. Thank you. Fred, what
And
about—
I wasn't afraid either, because many people feel it's really, don't want to go there, don't mention that, and don't mention that. But we do need to mention that in a calm and neutral way.
Yeah, 100%.
I think for me, my life has been so intertwined with the values of Up With People, the values of couple of other organizations that have been vital in my life. And it just continues. For me, I'll just say in the past several years, one of the places where my experience with Up With People, my experience of opening up to different cultures and so forth, has come about with hosting some business people from Russia and from Armenia, from Panama and from Argentina. Yeah, Panama. From David. And it's been, especially with the hosting of our Russian friends, they came into our home only for a week. But again, you realize that what we hear through our politicians on both sides, what we hear through the media, is not the full story. Yes, there are differences. Yes, there are some conflict between. But when you really get down to it, it is that one-on-one relationship. Quick story about that.
Yeah.
Our first hosting of a Russian contingent, and we hosted a young lady from St. Petersburg. After the week being together, their contingent said, "You guys need to come over to Russia." And so there were 5 of us who said, "Okay, we'll come over next year." And we did. And it was the first time that a full contingent of the United States went over to visit their hosts that they had, their host kids. They weren't kids, but they were adults. But anyway, we get over to Russia and we meet up with the person we hosted. She runs a little children's theater. We met her mom, we met her daughter, we met her best friend and her best friend's daughter. Tatiana's girl and her friend did a beautiful dance in the middle of this park for us, just to say thank you, with music. And we have people just stopping, watching this. We get down to Moscow and the rest of the contingent meets us. One woman traveled 24 hours by train to get to Moscow to meet us.
Oh,
It was so great, and the Up With People experience helped me to better understand about that relationship that we were developing. And I've had that happen to me now in China several times. Valerie, when you were talking about pictures in Estonia, I was thinking the kids in Shanghai or wherever in China I would travel, and the kids would run up to you and want to talk, even though they could maybe say only hi and bye or something like thank you, and they want to get a picture. And, it's just so wonderful.
I think those are the kind of experiences that everyone needs to have, right? The opportunity, I think, again, going back to the choice to step into an experience where you are in a different culture or bringing someone else to meet you. I thank my parents, because if it hadn't been for my mom hosting, getting those tickets, thank you, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. But we've been hosting people, we were always the family that if we weren't hosting them in our home, we would invite the foreign exchange student to have dinner. We somehow befriended them and their family or whatever. That was kind of how we rolled, especially my mom. Which I think that really, for me, has been an opportunity to just keep extending, keep meeting, keep saying hello. And then the other thing I think Up With People was brilliant at for me is there's no one that can tell me oh my gosh, I didn't have enough time to go do whatever. Like, you can find and give me 2 hours. I can go someplace and and do some damage, not damage, but the idea of having to travel someplace and is not worth if you can't go for 2 weeks or more. Like, bull, that's not true. Give me 2 days, give me 1 day, and I'll make the best out of that time. I think Up With People helped me just go deep fast and then be adventuresome. Like, I went to Japan a few years ago. My brother was stationed in Okinawa, he and his family. So I stayed with them for about 10 days. And then I took 3 days to stay in Tokyo. I ended up meeting one of my former castmates in Tokyo, and she and I spent the day together, and it happened to be this huge festival. So it was just like a beautiful culture and experience. And the next, I was just like, I want to go to Hiroshima. I want to go to Hiroshima. She's like, no, that's far from Tokyo. Yeah. It's most people go in a day or two. It's a longer trip. And I'm like, I think I can make something happen. And it so happened I could take the bullet train. It takes 4 hours to get there in bullet train. I booked it first thing the next day. I went there, got there at noon, spent the day by myself, just checking everything that I wanted to check out. And I took the last train back to Tokyo. And I'm like, thank you, Up With People. So don't let anything, I think, stop me from experiencing something that's meaningful. That's what that experience in those years.
And one thing I would like to add to that is also what Up With People taught me is to see everyone the same. I think that is also a skill or just an awareness when you get to this aha. Then you just see everyone. Then we have function, of course. Somebody has this title, somebody has that title, but I view everyone the same. And that I do. I really do, truly.
Well, speaking of viewing everyone the same, how did you guys experience this? I mean, this is the first or second time being on a podcast like this, meeting a stranger and having these conversations. So I'm curious, what's your experience been like today?
Interesting, nice, fun.
Good.
Fred doesn't feel very much as a stranger. I don't
and
think
same with Ali. I mean, it feels like we've known each other. And, that's the beauty of Up With People is you make those connections. My experience through seeing Up With People has gone through not quite 55 years, but pretty darn close. And I have friends that were in the original casts, the early 60s all the way up through the present. My work on the
2000 was
board.
my last cast. So
The what was?
mine was the last cast I worked with was 2000. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And,
Beyond.
you know, and having been on the IAA board, the International Alumni Association board, allowed me to have connection points through the eras.
Yeah.
And as much as we are ages apart by physical age or by, actual age, we are so close in our experiences.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah.
The cast that went in 1965 to Watts in LA and experienced that, and the casts that are now, or not now, but have been in major spots where there's been conflict and so forth in the 90s and the 2000s and so forth. Those experiences are so palpable and so similar to each other. And it just shows that even generationally, we are very much alike. As much as we try to have that wall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of connection with your old castmates?
Watch who you say old. I know.
Whatever happened to like removing the layers?
No. Because you have several casts, yeah?
Yeah, I do have some connection with my cast from 75. We do some Zoom meetings and so forth. I have also connections with my Sing Out casts mates over the years, because I was in Sing Out for almost 10 years. And then I also have connections with people that I met along the way through the eras, through my work with the IAA. So some of the most important people I know who have had the most impact on my life are through Up With People in one way or another.
Yeah.
Including my wife, by the way.
Oh, nice.
No, she did not travel. Her best friend was in a Sing Out cast, and that was the connection point.
Indirectly, anyway. Yeah. No, but you have been a part of many Up With People, casts and groups and so on. That's what I meant, not that.
Yeah, I know.
Too late.
You don't need to apologize.
Well, as we're wrapping up this conversation, Ali, what are you taking away from this conversation?
That it was a really new thing for me to do. I stepped out of my box and did something I haven't done before, appreciating your choice of doing things that you think is, necessary on some level, and meeting Fred, getting to know Fred, and just enjoying a conversation in a new way. Thank you so much.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping out.
Yes. Yes.
Fred, anything else you're taking out of this conversation, taking away from this experience?
It was just a pleasure. I feel like we're in our living room just talking with the three of us. I really do. And Valerie, thank you for making that possible. And Ali, thank you for coming into my living room to have this conversation. It's just so much fun to be able to talk with people and laugh with people and not have to worry about, am I going to say the right thing or the wrong thing?
Exactly.
Thank you for this.
Like about age and stuff. So
I told you I like to have fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, playful. Popcorn. I'm going to use that phrase.
I love it.
That's a great one.
I'm so
it was
grateful.
really awesome.
I'm so grateful
really
for this
awesome.
too. You guys have been amazing. I know we can talk for hours, and I'm sure at some other point we can continue the conversation beyond the podcast, but I'm grateful for the two of you having said yes, for being as generous with your stories and ideas and experiences as you have been with not only me, with each other, but anyone that might be listening and tuning in. I don't take for granted that it takes something, to say yes to this and then share something personal about yourself in the process. So, yay!
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for creating this opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's up to us to create.
Yes.
And you did.
There's more. There's more to come. So anybody that's tuning in right now, if you're interested in subscribing to www.notquitestrangers.com, you will get a notification anytime a new episode is available through email. You can also subscribe on YouTube or any of your favorite podcast platforms and be notified that way. So I'm so excited that you all had an opportunity to meet these phenomenal human beings out in the world doing their thing. And the rest of the world that they brought along with them just in this conversation. I think people got a chance to travel with us today. I really do think so. All right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a lovely evening. Bye.
You've been listening to the podcast Not Quite Strangers. Be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite video or podcast platform. And for more information and content, go to notquitestrangers.com. See you next time.